Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the iFlight Commando 8 radio. Yes, seeing this probably doesn't surprise you very much. We saw image of this 2 or 3 months ago, but picking a radio is hard. And unfortunately, the best recommendation I can give you is to get with somebody else who has other radios or a group of people who has other radios and get your hands on it. Because when it comes down to radios and goggles, those are two things that we really need to have that first-hand experience. But if you're like me and you don't have anyone close to you that flies, or at least no one you're aware of that's close to you that flies, you're probably doing some research like this. In this video, we're going to take a look at the kind of exterior hardware specs. We'll also talk about the different options, because this one does have a few options and some differences than others that look very, very similar to this. As well as do some fun stick cam. You know, I like to have fun on this channel, and one of the things I always enjoy is making a little stick cam. It gives me an opportunity to show you how I hold the radio and how it works for me in flight. And obviously this is kind of that gamepad style of radio that we've seen a fair number of times before, and these gimbals, they look quite a bit smaller than we've seen in the past. They are Hall gimbals, by the way. So if you maybe have seen kind of the FPV standard TX16S, this is the Max Pro, it's all blinged out. You know, it's a big radio, it's heavy, it's kind of traditional. You know, this is kind of the size and the style of radio we had across all of our flying RC stuff for many, many years. Well, thankfully today, probably with the advent of all those gaming consoles that have been played for the last 20 plus years, we have these little guys, which that is my bias. I prefer little radios. I use kind of a extended stick end and then high rates and a little radio. I think these feel more comfortable, and I've said this before in other gamepad style radios, with this angle and with the size, that I don't feel like I have to get my elbows in against my rib cage in order to get my hands out, like when I'm flying with the big radio. I feel like I've really got to get my hands in. And I'm not a huge dude by any chance. I'm actually smaller than I used to be, but I'm a 5'11" guy, so I'm not, you know, really big or anything like that. But these always have felt a little bit uncomfortable. I spent a couple years flying this sort of radio, but these have always just felt more comfortable. So let's take a look at those outer specs, and then we'll move along the video. One more thing, they have got some package deals available over on the iFlight website, where they're not only selling just this radio, but they also have a new quad, the ProTech R25. That's kind of a cinematic quad that will be coming to the channel, and they've been creating different bundles on their iFlight website. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, you might want to also check for sales prices. They're kind of allude to the fact there might be a sales promotion, but at the time of this recording, I don't see price differences, but I wasn't looking at them previously. So something to check out also on their website. I'll have links down in the video description so you can do that. So I'm going to start right off with the size of the gimbal. Of course, I'm just measuring this outside area here, so there's quite a bit of gimbal behind the plastics and down below the plastics as well. So you can see I get about 21.5 millimeters. And if I bring out a radio that we might be used to that you cannot buy anymore, well, at least they're not making it anymore. This is the Jumper T-Lite. You can see where it's quite a bit smaller. Or if we do the same with the Radio Master, it's about the same as far as the size and being smaller. And some people say because of the smaller gimbal size that you have less resolution. So therefore, I think the premise is that you have less precision that you can have in your flight. I can't validate that. I've used a number of radios, and the bigger the radio, the bigger the gimbal, the worse I fly. So maybe I have more precision, but I can't handle it comfortably. So there's a little bit of... I can't really tell you if that's going to be an issue for you or not, but it's something to keep in mind, and it is part of this radio having smaller gimbals than I think just about anything else we've seen, at least on this channel here recently. So we have our two typical sticks here. These are M2 sticks. They do come in various lengths, but I don't see currently on the iFlight website where you have any options for other sorts of stick ends. If you're looking to get different stick ends, keep in mind M2 is the screw, and as you see here, the stick and the screw are all one piece. There is no screw sticking out that you can put another end on. So if you do get a stick end, it's got to be able to screw into that M2 threading right there. These are for our navigation. We have our lanyard so we can hang it from our chin, or excuse me, our neck. Our power button, which doubles as kind of a meter reading. Our SD card, and our USB-C port, which does the 20-watt charging for faster charging, as well as being able to plug into a computer for simulator use if you're going to do, you know, whatever, liftoff or Velocidrome, what have you. It works just fine. And you can also use with Resellers, you can also use Bluetooth. In my experience with the Bluetooth, there's a little bit of a delay, but if that doesn't bother you, you do get the wireless sort of aspect to your FPV simulator. Also up top we have just these simple buttons, really kind of made for FPV in my opinion. So these two outside ones are just 2-position, and then these 3-position rockers out here. And the 3-position rockers actually felt a little bit different to me than I've felt on other radios. They felt like not only do they lock into place nicely, but they also felt like they transition out of their different positions a little bit better than I felt in other rockers. Now, I'm not much for using buttons and rockers. You know, I kind of cut my teeth in FPV with switches, and I have a really hard time adapting to buttons. I've tried and tried and tried, but I'm just not quite used to it. Also, they feature this antenna up here top, so it folds down for compact folding, putting in your go bag or whatnot, and it also turns. If you hear any rumbling outside, that's because we got a thunderstorm, and it looks like it just zapped our internet, so that's interesting. So this only turns here this way, I guess. Would you call that counterclockwise, I guess? Or is this counterclockwise? It only turns to the right. But then, of course, it folds down. They do have a dual band antenna in here, so if you by chance wanted to fly not only 2.4 gigahertz, but you wanted to fly 868 or 915 megahertz, they have an option to buy this with more than one antenna. Around back here, there isn't a whole lot. They have a fan in here, so make sure you can run up to 500 milliwatts. Resellers, when it gets above 250 milliwatts, it needs a fan to stay cool. Our batteries are behind here, but they're not easily accessible. It's got a 4,000 milliamp battery, 2,000 on each side. Let's go ahead and pop these off so you can see what I'm talking about as far as not easily accessible. These are some sort of rubber grips, and they are a little bit tedious to get back on and get flush and flat. On the back of this, we do have adjustments, so if you wanted to switch from mode 1 to mode 2, you can do that with, I think it's this screw on this side and the far screw on this side. And then if you want to adjust the spring tension, it would be this screw, so it would be about here on this side. So the manual all covers that stuff. It does work, but I found out of the box that I thought the tension was about right, kind of in the middle. I've talked about in the past how I like a really sloppy or loose. In this case, I didn't feel that I needed to go to a sloppy or loose. I think long term I still would loosen them both up just a little bit, especially on the throttle. I like a really loose throttle, just enough to where the tension will keep it at its lowest position so that I don't get all those throttle warnings or arm warnings. So that's kind of how I like my throttle on mine. Let's go ahead and put this back on, and I'll power it up real quick. This is going to take me a while, isn't it? So as I mentioned, this is a meter button down here. So you press it once, it gives us the number of green LEDs across the front. They go in 20%, and then also flashing depending upon how low your battery is. So you press that once, then you press it and hold.
Welcome to HTX.
Throttle warning.
Throttle warning.
Yeah, and so then you get a little sample of the volume as well on there. So you saw it runs HTX, which that's great. We get the faster polling and all the new feature set that HTX team has brought to us, so we don't have to wait on OpenTX. We're seeing more and more radio manufacturers move to HTX as well, which I think is a good thing as well. Now, if I hold this real close to this particular camera here, you might be able to hear the fan. Let me see. Hopefully you could hear that. The fan isn't loud. It's like one of those things that you can hear it when you're listening for it, but if you're not listening for it, you might not hear it at all. It's smooth, it's not grindy. The fan in my Orcas make a lot more noise than this particular fan. If that gives you any point of reference, you may have heard my Orca fan in some of my videos over the years. Of course, we'll press once, and then we'll press, and the green LEDs wind down, and it goes to sleep or power off. So that's kind of the hardware on it. I guess one thing I should talk about is the construction. Now this feels more hardy than other radios that you've seen that look and are colored just like this. It feels very stiff. It feels well put together. It doesn't feel like anything's, You know when you just kind of squeeze plastics, how sometimes they'll creak and crack? This one really, it just doesn't do that. So I think the construction is pretty good on that. And without having traditional sticks or switches and having a foldable antenna, if you're someone who likes to pack to fly or you do pack to fly, that should decrease the opportunities to have breakages in your bag. Here's a quick look at the module here in the back. And of course you can see we've got our fan connection, our USB-C. We can use that for updating. There's this little connector down here. I'm not certain that's for our use or if that's for developmental use, but you can see we've also got our fan down in there, which we also heard. But something that I probably should show you, we've got 2 buttons down here. Now, I haven't read the Resellers wiki on this particular module, so I suspect one of those would be for us to be able to, if we had flashing that didn't go right, it would be the DFU button. Of course, getting your fingernail in there isn't going to be very easy, so you could use a flat edge, something like this, to kind of clicky-click the buttons, which works just fine. I prefer to use something like a popsicle stick or wood, plastic, something that's not conductive, because if you're powering this thing and you're using something metal, you know, you could touch something. We've got a UFL connector here. Of course, we'd have to plug that in once we pulled it out of the radio, and then we have our shielding over the top of the radio chip. So that's just a quick peek at this. And the module actually comes in and out really quickly, just 2 screws, and then we have these little latch bits down here to where you just kind of set it in there, and then screw your screws in, and you're all set to go. So if you did want to switch between 2.4 gigahertz and 868 and 915, you could do that relatively easily with these modules. So something that I stressed earlier was here on their website, and you can see this one has a fair bit of an advantage when it comes to buying things with options. You're not just stuck with 2 options, this module or that module. So they do have the 2 different models, of course, within Resellers, but then they've also got the option of whether you have the dual band antenna or not. Of course, if you're getting more than one module, getting the dual band antenna would be wise. They also have some additional parts down there. Maybe you want an extra module, the neck strap, or you just want to order the dual band antenna and not the module later on. You can also get some receivers down here, and then you've also got the stick ends down at the very bottom. Stock is 18.8 millimeters. That's what you see on the radio that I have. And then you can get 20.8 millimeters and 22.8 millimeters. And to my knowledge, those are the only stick ends at this time that will work with this particular radio. All right, so we're going to move into a little stick cam, which is fun. You can see the wind blowing pretty hard, and I am flying my favorite analog micro, the TKS Rocket Race 75, a 2S edition, so it's 78 millimeters technically motor post to motor post. I know everybody loves to hear me say that, so 78 millimeters motor post to motor post. It's a little 2S quad. It's a lot of fun. I just enjoy this. I have like 4 or 5 of them in different combinations. So of course I'm going to bind it up to one of my favorite. I also flew it in the house with this, and I recorded a stick cam for that as well, and I put it together, and then later on I decided, I think the last time I did a radio, I did indoor stick cam. Let's do outdoor stick cam. The yard actually looks a fair bit different than this. We've already been in the pool once, and the area behind the garage where we're going to have a little bit of an outdoor living space and kind of a cooking area that has got its roof just about on, so that'll be a big development as well. Of course, I think it'll take weeks to tie all the little details off with having the electrician come out and run power. We're also going to run the network and the cable out there as well. We've got a couple of heaters that we'll use to increase the length of time that we can use in space, because we do get cold weather here as well. Strange place, it can get up to, well, it can get down to -5 or so, and then the wind, makes it feel even worse. And it could also get up to like 110, 115 degrees. So we get both ends of the weather spectrum here in the Midwest. And we met with a landscaper, and so our landscaping isn't going to be nearly as big a job. I'm still thinking about one particular aspect of it, but we just mainly need to get the sprinklers. We need to get the sprinklers repaired because I spent years chasing hoses around the yard trying to get grass to grow, and I couldn't get enough water on the grass chasing hoses around. Sprinklers are really the only way to do it. So we made that investment initially, and then we tore about 40% of it up when we had the pool and that slab put in. So it's got to all be patched back together. Obviously, I haven't completely tweaked out this TKS. I haven't changed my power voltage on it because we're getting the annoying low battery voltage. But it gives you an idea of how I hold. I am a kind of a pincher, a hybrid pincher, whatever you want to call it. I use 2 fingers on each sticks, and I just kind of let the radio rest in my hands with my ring finger, my pinky finger doing most of the heavy lifting, if you want to call it that. I don't care for a neck lanyard. I tried that, and I sit when I fly. That's something else to note as well. And I really kind of talked through this flight so we could get down to the end, because one of my troubles has always been adjusting to buttons, especially disarming, which in micros is really, really important. If you focus on my fingers as I come in here, you'll see that I kind of reach and I reach in the wrong spot. Now I got it. Of course, I'll put 50, 100 flights on it. I'll probably end up finding that button a lot faster as time goes by. So I think the last thing to consider always when it comes to our budget and FPV, our fun little hobby, is that budget. This radio has, it has those different options, so we have to go to the website and select our options to see what we're going to get. But if you select the base edition with that's 2.4 gigahertz with Express LRS, that has the 500 megawatt module and a single antenna, not a dual band antenna, that comes in at $169.99. And your price is going to go up and down from there, but that gives you a good idea of about what the base price is. And is it worth it? Well, that's a choice that you have to make. Color can mean something to someone. Screen size can mean something to you. Gimbal size, form factor, how does it feel in the hand, the brand. There's all these different values that we can place in each and every product. And when it comes down to what you're willing to spend for something, it's something that you have to decide. Don't forget, they're also doing that promotion where they're running package deals with this particular radio. So if you're wanting to start over with Express LRS and this radio, or you want to jump in to Express LRS and this radio, maybe they got a quad and a set of goggles that you like as well. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, otherwise, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.